Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
All right, welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Do us a huge favor. If this is bringing any value to you when you listen, please hit all of those buttons that the social media powers that be have created. Like, subscribe, share. If it brings any value at all, that does a huge benefit to us and what we're trying to do to share. So we would appreciate that. All right, we're excited today at Cashflow Legendz to get clarity on how this young-looking whippersnapper, Brock, got here this quick when it took Nate and I the latter half of our 30s to even get introduced to what Brock has been around and known for all of his 20s, and he's only roughly halfway through his 20s. All right, so Brock, tell us a little bit about where you started under basically your baseline knowledge of what we do now and how it brought you to here. And we'll dive in. Nate and I'll jump in and just pick your brain along the way.
How did I get here? So I did the traditional path of, going to high school, playing the sports, and thinking I would, go on to play college sports and go to a big university and all that. Ended up playing a little bit of baseball, but giving that up due to some injuries. And when I graduated from high school, one of the thoughts that, runs through most people's mind is, okay, well, what am I going to do? What's my major? What am I going to do? All this stuff. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I always thought my life would be centered around baseball. And if baseball didn't work out, I'd probably just join the military and continue moving on with life. But with those injuries, I gave both of those up. And my father actually, who never really shared what he did with me, or I never really asked either. I just knew that going on to baseball games and tournaments that he was always on the phone talking to somebody else, and always talking on the phone, sharing wisdom and asking questions. And I didn't really take a lot of notice to it until later on, probably later years of high school and into summer of college. And one day he asked me if I wanted to come to one of his workshops in Nashville where he was teaching other advisors. And I said, well, I guess I don't have anything else to do. So ended up going in the fall of 2016 and absolutely just fell in love with it right off the bat. And I was just filled with joy of how much you get to help people through the work that we do. And one of the things that has become clear to me over the last, I would say, year is the ability to speak possibility into people and letting them know what's actually possible and helping them dream again rather than just falling on the traditional path and giving up that American dream that most people just let go of.
What about that first, event you went to with your dad? What about that jumped out to you so much? What piqued your interest? What caught your attention? Do you remember like one specific thing, or was it just the whole experience in general?
I think it was just the whole experience in general, and in the conversations, stepping into your authority and speaking with boldness, not at your clients, but with your clients, so that they have somebody who's an advocate for their financial life. That most advisors in this world today, unfortunately, just lackadaisically just, oh, well, you're just like everybody else. If you just put money in an account, it should hopefully grow over time. And that wasn't the case when I showed up there. It was much more of, hey, we're asking questions. We want to know what actually is going on in somebody's life, and what my dad calls the physics of money and understanding how those physics work.
All right. So Nate, you and I came to be sitting here having this awesome conversation, really from reading Becoming Your Own Banker, our eyes being open to a whole new world that really for me hurt my brain. Nate was immediately like, if this makes sense at all, we got to get on this. We were at a point in our life where I don't want to say we were, Nate and I have always enjoyed anything we've been doing because we were raised to be grateful, but we were looking for something new. Okay. So we came into it headfirst on Nelson Nass's, mindset, background, Becoming Your Own Banker. And that plays a huge role in who your dad is, because he did live family meetings basically with Nelson in the 90s, which is pretty wild. So Nate, talk a little bit about, and then, throw any questions at Brock and his journey with how we came to it, all only pretty much from the point of view of infinite banking and Nelson's becoming your own banker, and what we've learned and how it connected us with Brock and more the holistic approach and kind of how that all ties us together.
Well, thinking back on our journey, Brandon, and how it all started through accountability. You and I had started reading books together. It was this collection between the two of us of just wanting to be challenged in our thinking and being excited about the things that we were reading and learning, and it up until that point had nothing to do with money, but we were just really excited about where this journey we were going on, and hungry for new challenges along the way. It was just God's timing that this book showed up, and it fed that hunger that we were searching for. It fed that challenge that we were looking for. The thing I think about when Brock kind of tells his story is, don't push your kids into things. Let them discover where they want to be in life. And it doesn't sound like, Brock, you really ever felt pressure to move into doing what your dad was doing.
Never. Yeah, never. All I knew was he talked on the phone a lot, and he would leave town for about a week, and he'd come back with a bunch of presents from different places where there was a desert, because I'd get rocks, rock candy, Beanie Babies, all that type of stuff.
You said you just
Sounds
knew
like
he talked to people.
Cracker Barrel a lot.
Yeah,
because I remember those days of getting rock candy at Cracker Barrel.
Heck yeah,
so, they still have it.
Cracker Barrel, like when I was a kid, like Cracker Barrel was like the stuff. Like if you ever went on a vacation and you didn't stop at Cracker Barrel, something was wrong.
That goes to show who's from Tennessee, because here in Tennessee, we still do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think Tennessee and Texas have a lot of similarities, in history and mindset and behavior. So that's pretty cool. Okay. So Nate, you brought up a great point. And this ties into, it'll probably tie into any episode we have. Someone's desire for becoming self-aware of where they want to go or how they've gotten to where they are right now is going to play a larger role than money. Money is just going to be the lighter fluid on wherever your mindset is, good or bad. It exposes who we are, and that can be really cool or really ugly. Brock, you think you're going on this one path in your mind. You're going to play college ball, go to the military, life changes, some injuries happen. You go to this event with your dad, and it just becomes obvious. It sounds like this is what you want to do. What has that looked like from, that was roughly 7 years ago, it sounds like, to now? Tell us a little bit about your journey and what you've learned. Now, I want to emphasize something here, and this is something Nate and I have learned a lot. If you live in the mindset that you can only learn from people older than you, you are succumbing to a lie that people like to tell you because of this hierarchy thing. We learn from Brock all the time, okay? And he is way younger than us. So one of the best ways to say that I know someone's willing to grow is if they're willing to listen to people from different ages and backgrounds and professions and religions and those kind of things, and they're less worried about the stereotype of whatever that means. So talk to us a little bit about, your own journey. What have you learned in the past 7 years? Maybe some big impactful things you learned along the way, and maybe where you are right now that could be a benefit to somebody around your age or our age.
One of the biggest lessons that I learned, and I think I talked about this on a different podcast, was the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions that you ask. When I first started out in this business as a young whippersnapper at 18, I was going into meetings with people obviously way older than me who had way more money than I did, but I went in there to prove why I was right and why they were wrong. And I didn't fully grasp the impact of what that was. And even today, like, some people talk to me about how they're a little intimidated by me. That often comes from the fact that I used to show up as somebody why, this is why I'm right and your idea is not right and you're dumb and I'm better, smarter, and can figure this math out. And when I began to understand that, in life, there's things that we know, there are the things that we know we don't know, then there's the things that we don't know that we don't know. But the best way to learn that stuff and to expand our thought process, our horizons, whatever it may be, is not through, just somebody beating it into you and telling you why you're wrong and they're right, but much more of a self-discovery process and a line of questioning to help people with the fact that, hey, like, I'm not only hearing what you're saying, but I'm understanding what you're saying about my finances. And now that I know it, now I feel comfortable to make a decision to move forward with something else.
That self-actualization or self-awareness, you mentioned questions, and that's a big part of, Nate, I'd say that's the biggest part of the blessing that we begin to experience in working with Brock and with Brock's dad, Trent, is that it's the power of the question. And here's the cool thing about when you ask questions, and anybody listening, I want you to ask yourself this. Who would you rather interact with? Somebody who tells you what to do, or someone who asks questions and engages your brain on how you think about what you're doing? And those are two very different things. And Brock, you alluded to it. I mean, I would say that even Nate in our late 30s went through a very similar process that you did. You just had it happen in your early 20s or late 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever it was. Because when you know something that you know most people don't know, you have a tendency to want to almost like force feed them, which doesn't do anybody any good, in the grand scheme of things.
We're selfish people in general. That's just how we're wired. We're wired to be selfish. And from a biblical standpoint, all the sin that we deal with in our life just boils down to selfishness, wanting our way over God's way. Now, but when I think about that and the idea of asking questions, we like the idea of coming up with the answer as opposed to being told what the answer is. So when we, from a psychological standpoint, when you're able to ask people questions and they can arrive at the answer, that's a better process for everybody.
And what it really leads to, and I'm sure Brock can speak on this, is some of the most exciting experiences and what we get to do when we speak possibility into people is to when they believe what we already see, but we didn't tell them they had to believe it. It became a part of their process. And they start realizing, holy moly, this is possible. And I want to emphasize something, because this is a huge piece that is hard to wrap your brain around. These actualizations connected to money don't ever require you to spend more money. They just require you to rethink how money flows through your life. Brock, talk to us about your own journey. Okay, it's still blowing my mind that you lived in Trent Fortner's house for all that time and like you have no clue what he does. Like, I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. That is like almost mesmerizing to me. Obviously, you probably recognize if your dad has conversations like he does with us, and he did then on the phone, that he's a positive person. He's encouraging people. He's asking thought-provoking questions. When did you go, holy moly, I'm not going to live the life that most 18 to 25-year-olds live? How has that process been, just the actualization of that?
I think the first realization when I found that out was at that workshop that I wasn't going to live a normal life anymore. And I always knew that I wasn't going to live a normal life because I've always been a big dreamer, because I'm a big proponent of you only go as far as and high as your dreams are. Your dreams are your ceiling. And so I've always thought with some pretty audacious goals, but I went to that first workshop. That was the realization that, one, I'd probably never work behind a desk. And after that would be, I've got a life that I'm going to be able to impact hundreds, if not thousands of people, and hopefully even more than that. But through that, and growing in that, I've been gifted to be around some of the brightest minds and have personal relationships, coaching relationships with the brightest minds in the financial industry. Guys like my dad, Bob Caslown, Garrett Gunderson, Mike Isom, Vince Dodona, Justin Donald, like these guys that are major players in the world of finance. I just thought they were, people that were just in my life. And I got to learn from them. And my journey with money, I never went through the traditional thinking of, oh, well, you just show up and you get a good job, you get good grades, and you max out your retirement plans, and this is how it works. And as I'm saying this, I now think back to when it actually started. I took a Dave Ramsey class at school. I think it was either my junior or senior year. I think it was my senior year, taught by James Wilhoit, the UT kicker who kicked the field goal and beat Florida.
Yeah.
And we're going through all these things, and none of this stuff is actually making sense to me, because I'm like, why do they say this, but why have I never heard this, knowing somewhat that my dad was in finance? And that was when I started to bring home the questions of, okay, well, what's going on here? Does this actually work? And my dad saying, well, it might not actually work that way. This may be how it works. And that was when I first picked up the book, Killing Sacred Cows. It's funny that I'm having these flashbacks because there was also, I don't remember the question or what was going on, but I noticed what was different when I was in an economics class once with my teacher, Mr. Martin, and he was saying something about finances and something else. And I said, well, wait a second. Well, I asked the question of, shouldn't it be this way and how this is working? And he kind of looked at me a little fuzzled and not knowing that I could ask a question like that. And I wish I could remember what that question was. But that, I believe, is actually when my journey started, was senior year of high school through a Dave Ramsey class. And this all got opened up to me.
So it's almost like you had this subconscious thing going on because you at least probably heard your dad's conversations and been inundated with them and all y'all's trips to the ball field and the school and all that. And then you had that to compare against some new information. You're like, I think it's a great point that the power of how we interact as parents, Nate, daily, our kids do more of what they see than what we say. That really, marinates and sits in and sinks in. And then they have that to compare against and go, that doesn't sound right. So it sounds like, Brock, you've always been someone who's asked questions or questioned what you were being told. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. Anytime I was in physical therapy, anytime I was doing a workout, well, why do we have to do it this way? What's the point? Why am I doing this? What does it affect? How does this affect me?
So I'm going to bring up this point as an encouragement to parents and to learners out there. Brock, am I correct in saying and remembering that you were not the biggest fan of school and studying in high school?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
I was a terrible student in high school.
Now compare that to now.
Now, it is a world of difference. A majority of my time is spent studying and trying to learn.
So you're saying my son has a chance.
And one of mine too.
He's a junior in high school right now, and he does not enjoy schoolwork at all.
Yeah, give him time.
Would you agree that when we find the thing that we know we're supposed to be doing, or the realm of it, that's really what draws out the qualities that we were gifted with, because now we know our purpose?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny. Sometimes I'll meet people from middle school or high school, and they'll be like, man, I saw you on LinkedIn and you're posting stuff. I'm like, is this the same Brock that I know? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And they're like, I didn't realize you were this smart. And I'm like, well, thanks, but I'm glad I could show you what I do know.
I think there's a really good story in there that, I was on a meeting yesterday with your dad, and he made the point. Somebody said, well, I'm not sure in 20 or 30 years. And he was asking questions to bring out the thought process of, well, what about if you had really good 1-year plans that you grew from and they built on top of each other, instead of this, I got to get over here 30 years down the road and there's all these variables I don't know. I think what I really like that I hear you're saying is that we all should be a better version of ourselves tomorrow than we were today. And that is the only comparison we should make, is, did I improve from yesterday over a day by day period, or really minute by minute, because we're not going to be the same person, which just talks about a lot in a book called The Gap and the Gain, and 10x is easier than 2x, which has been on my mind a lot lately. But to kind of tidy this up, Brock, maybe one or two key impactful things as you sit here today that you would want to share with anyone that has been a blessing or a benefit to you, related to obviously the infinite banking concept, becoming your own banker, but it's more than that. You mentioned financial physics, how money flows through your life, but speak on what's the most impactful thing when all of those things are understood for you as a 25-year-old, and what you get to do daily, and to encourage other people who may not be doing what they're supposed to be doing yet, or not sure how to get there.
The first thing that I would probably talk about comes off of what you just said, but I think I had somebody tell me this one time, but I believe that, the day that we show up in heaven, that God is going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. He's also going to introduce us to our potential self. Our job is to make sure that we know that potential self as intimately as we possibly can. And so when I look at that in our financial lives, what I think about is, first, you need to understand that you are your number one greatest asset. And when you treat yourself that way and you have that mindset, you begin to understand that your human value, your human life value, is the sole creator of your economic life value, which is the things of our finances and everything. And so if we can spend the time, especially in our younger years, investing in ourselves and increasing our own stock value, we'll begin to realize that money follows value instead of you needing money to create more money, but understanding that money follows value. And when we can stand in a place of knowing that we are worth something and we are our greatest asset, now we can live a life where we're not playing to lose or we're not playing to win, but we're winning before we even start to play, because we've designed a game worth playing, and we get to love that life.
It's good stuff. So to kind of recap key points, you are your greatest investment. You are your greatest asset. You're your greatest resource. Learning to pour into that first will create the greatest impact. It has a huge, it's a reason that us three are here together, is because we've had people around us that encourage us to do that. And you are exactly right. The money will follow once the value is created and how we pour into ourselves. So at Cashflow Legendz, we want to encourage you to always realize you can keep more of what you earn, so you can earn more with what you keep. Our goal is to bring that to light every time we meet and discuss any topics. And feel free to shoot us an email at cashflowlegendz with a Z at gmail.com. Any thoughts or any insights you want, we'd love to get those and respond to you. And also drop us any comments on the YouTubes or wherever else you see us at, and we'll have a conversation with you. So until next time, have a great one.